Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. Now, if you're a longtime subscriber of this channel, you may notice where I am. This is the scene of my very first episode that I did about 8 months ago. I'm about 32 episodes in now, so I appreciate all of you who followed me along on this journey. If you want to check that out, I did an episode on how to shoot fire. You can see that in the link in the description below. With Halloween upon us, I thought it would be really cool to do a styled fashion shoot with a Halloween twist. I find most Halloween episodes to be a tad cheesy, a little heavy on the organ music, a little heavy on the wolf howls. We're not gonna do that. We're just gonna do a really cool fashion styled shoot and add our little Halloween twist to it. However, I'm always thinking about how to make shoots go a little better. I'm always thinking about how I can push the envelope to make it a bit more interesting. When I shoot an editorial, I obviously want to tell a story, but you always want to take that story and see how far you can take it. So I'm going to channel my inner love for the 1999 cult classic Office Space, directed by Mike Judge, and I'm going to pay homage to many of your favorite scene in this movie, which is the scene where they go out into the middle of the field and they break a copying machine slash fax machine. They absolutely destroy it with baseball bats. They kick it in. I like juxtaposition. I like to take sweet looking models who look like they wouldn't harm a fly, give them something like a crowbar, give them something like an iMac, and let them smash the ever living shit out of it. And Alyssa is going to be that lucky candidate today. I think we've all wanted to destroy our computer at some point in our lives, and today we're going to get to do that with a decommissioned iMac that I have no use for. It has no monetary value. It's my iMac, so I can do whatever the hell I want to with it. So anyway, I do apologize for the noise. There is a road right above us, and so there are going to be cars. I'll do my best to clean all this up in post. But I love using this area. It's got some really cool vibes. It's grungy, there's graffiti everywhere. And hey, if you're gonna break an iMac with a crowbar, this seems like a perfectly cool spot to do it. So on today's episode, I'm going to be showing you my EOS R5, showcasing it for my editorial work. It is my go-to camera. I find that the autofocusing system on it is practically a cheat code. It's fast enough for me, the ergonomics are really easy for me to get around, and it's just a perfect fit for what I do. To tell the story today, I only brought one main lens with me, and that is the Canon RF28-70 f2. It's my favorite zoom lens in the entire world, and while I love the look of the 85 and the 51.2, I'm in tight quarters, I'm having a fast changing environment, I really need versatility, and the RF28-70 f2 gives me that, but it doesn't sacrifice quality like a lot of zoom lenses do. If you want to know why I recommend the RF28-70 f2 for that magazine-ready editorial look, check out my 2-year review I did with plenty of picture examples. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Perfect. Let's see what these look like. I'm going to shoot in this direction, and I'll let you get over there. Let me get my ISO up a little bit. I'm going to get something a little bit more cinematic vibe, so let's shoot this horizontally. Of course, when you're doing a fashion editorial, the clothes are the star of the show, and while using a crowbar to destroy an iMac is cool, we still do need to document the clothes, so we had this really cool embroidered look from Alice and Olivia, who are kind enough to provide us with clothes for this episode. My amazing stylist Kaylee took this styling and married it to the steampunk goggles that I purchased on Amazon to add to my ever-growing collection of props. And then of course there's the aforementioned crowbar, which made a really cool prop as well, and I'm sure I'll find some use for it in the future. The only other lens I brought on this shoot, and I only used on about 1% of the shots, is my RF 102.8 macro, which I thought was good to use on the detail shots of the props and some of the styling. I've done this shot before technically with fire, but...
With fire?
I was going to ask if this is where you did that fire shoot.
It is.
Yeah.
What I love about this is we got reflectivity right here. which is acting as like a, well, it's a reflector, so I don't have to use a flash. It's great. I've got great lighting. Get those adjustments. It's always worth waiting for these adjustments.
Another thing I've learned over the years is when stylists, hairstylists, makeup artists, they walk up to your model and they want to make adjustments to the wardrobe, just get out of their way and let them do it. Oftentimes they're adjusting something that you're going to have to edit 12, 13 times in a row before it's caught. Just get out of their way and let them do their jobs.
Now, I'm going to do some shots where you're kind of more side, okay? Above it. Maybe do one where you're dragging it along here. It doesn't matter if you do a little bit of damage. Literally everybody's doing that. Ready. Look at me while you do it. There you go. We can go over here and we'll come back for the crowbar. It'll be fine.
As a photographer, I mainly shoot in manual mode. I do this because when you look at a scene like what's going on right here, you can see there's some really bright parts, there's some shadows, there's some things in between, and I find that even though the R5's metering isn't bad, it's not perfect, and I'd rather trust myself in manual mode. Plus, this new sensor does a pretty good job when I overshoot. It doesn't blow out highlights, and you can recover things quite well. So for my autofocus, I program my back button focus on the AF on, like a lot of back button focusers do. Then the button that you see here on the left, I program that between servo and one shot AF. Then the button to the right of that, I program to eye detect. And then I use the built-in control ring on my RF lenses. I use that to control my autofocus area. And that's really it. I have a very simple autofocus setup when I'm shooting editorials.
Beautiful. Let me get in a little bit more. Gorgeous. Nailed it.
So we finished up that first look. I thought we got some pretty good shots. We kicked around a little bit of dirt to foreshadow the destruction that was upcoming. Then we got into a second look.
Shot. That looks awesome. Let me get a little lower to the ground. Get you in my rule of thirds. Oh, that looks awesome. Let me just make sure I'm not blowing out my highlights. Looking great.
For the second look, Kaylee decked out Alyssa in these really cool button-up, athletic-looking pants, and the shirt that consisted of hundreds of mirrors. I mean, who doesn't want to take a picture of somebody with hundreds of mirrors all over them, especially when they're breaking an iMac?
Ooh, I kind of like your shadow there. Hold on. Just like that. Now look hard that way toward the video camera.
One pro tip I've learned over the years is that if you're working with other talents, like makeup artists, hairstylists, wardrobe stylists like Kaylee over here, make sure that you take pictures of them working with your talent. Let them have those pictures for their websites. They will be very grateful for that, and it's just a good thing to do.
That looks pretty awesome. If I do say so myself. Get your tracking just like that. Rise up. Let me get in closer. You're doing great. I'm just getting this all. Ooh, yeah, the freaking lighting looks incredible. Make sure I get your face in focus. Just legs a little more out, like that. Helps your posture. It's like squats. Bam. Look at this. What?
Oh my
God. What? What?
Ooh, yeah.
What? You look like Wonder Woman. What's your superpower? Breaking iMacs with crowbars.
Speaking of that, it was time to get to our very last station, test out the lighting, and finalize our decisions before we decided to do the main event. When I was learning photography, I came up on film. That means two things. Number one, I'm old. And number two, I learned to shoot through a viewfinder. I still prefer to shoot through the viewfinder, but I am starting to embrace the change. I find that when I hold my camera down low, I hold it up high, boy, that flip out screen comes in handy. I also wanted to try some off-camera flash since we are more or less doing the same shot we were doing earlier, just in a different outfit.
Let me get this just right. I need to get a tiny bit more on. There we go.
So while I think we got some really cool shots with the off-camera flash, very usable shots with the off-camera flash, I think it's a bit too polished for the main event. I want to go ahead and move on to breaking the iMac all in real time and documenting it as it unfolds. But I'm going to go with natural lighting, I'm going to raise my ISO, and I'm going to raise my shutter speed to freeze action. Some of you at home who don't like noise, you're not going to like this next part because I don't care about noise, because I don't look at pictures zoomed into 400%. I look at them the way they're supposed to be viewed, and when you do that, you don't notice noise, and even if you did, it kind of looks like film grain, which I think is totally fine. Since I could only get this done in one take, I wanted to get it from all different angles, so I opted to bring 4 cameras, technically 5 if you're talking about my R5, which also shot a little bit of video. So with the 5 video cameras, shot number 1, I used my Fuji GFX 100S, which I would normally never use for video, but I needed 5 video cameras and it does video. I outfitted it with a 110mm f2 lens. If some of you are watching this and going, hey dude, why didn't you just use your Fuji GFX for this? This is way too fast paced for that camera. If you've ever used a Fuji GFX 100S, you probably know that unless you're really good on manual focus, it probably couldn't get the job done here, especially when it comes to shooting in burst mode. For my second camera, I had Adam man my R7. I did a 3-part review of that. You should check it out in the link in the description below. But I gave Adam autonomy. I gave him a 24-105 lens. I let him go back and forth between doing behind the scenes and filming the main event. For my third camera, my side angle, I just got the main event with my Fuji XS10 and my Sigma 16mm f1.4 contemporary, which comes out to about 24mm in full frame when you factor in the crop factor. And then for my fourth camera, I used my Exprotrek action camera, which shoots in 4K 60 frames per second. I put it in its waterproof housing because there's gonna be flying shards of glass everywhere. I didn't wanna get the camera damaged, even though it's not a very expensive camera. It's still kind of cool. It doesn't have the greatest video quality compared to the other cameras, but it gets the job done, and it's kind of cool to just put there in places where action is happening. I don't really have to worry about it too much. And then for my fifth, I just did a few 120 frame per second shots with my Canon R5. So that's the technical setup for what we're about to see. But without further ado, let's go to the main event.
Here, you're rolling. So make sure when she walks right over here and claps that you're pointing at her so we can see the synchronization happen. I'm in my high drive mode. I'm gonna go double check and just make sure this guy's rolling.
So on professional movie sets, they use clappers to synchronize the audio and all the different camera shots. I don't like to take a lot of things with me on set. The fewer things, the better. So instead of using a clapper, I'm gonna use my stylus.
Go ahead and clap your hands. All right. And let me just make sure that this is looking good on my end. This is at 1/400th of a second. Let me bump my ISO up I need to get this to about 1600. That's looking good. Let's do this.
So the videos look pretty cool, but let's see how we did on the stills. So as I mentioned earlier, we did this shoot all in natural lighting. I just think it had a rawness to it that made more sense to me artistically. It's all subjective, it's all your choice, so there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just what I decided to do for today's shoot. I switched it up between color and monochrome. I thought some of the monochrome shots looked good for details, to get the grimy glass and a lot of the stuff that was just scattered across the concrete. I just thought that the black and white worked a little better there, but there was so much color and graffiti, I wanted to make sure I had good balance of color as well. Also, being that it is fashion, we do want to get the accuracy of colors in the clothes, so we did a lot of shots in color there as well. And I'm sure many of you seeing this glass scattered all over the concrete are asking yourselves, did they clean up after themselves? So that concludes today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you who stuck around into the end. Hopefully you had as much fun watching this episode as we had making this episode. I hope this also sheds a little bit more light as to why I like to use the EOS R5 paired with the RF28-70 f2 for fashion editorials. I want to give a special thanks to Alyssa, who did an incredible job modeling for today's episode. She did an incredible job in the editorial, and she rocked those outfits out. Speaking of those outfits, I also want to thank Alice and Olivia for providing those two outfits, and especially want to thank Kaylee for styling those two outfits. I'll leave a link in the description below to all their Instagrams. I also want to give a special thanks to Adam. Without his help, there were a lot of shots I couldn't have gotten with the R7 on video because I can't be in two places at once. So anyway, if you like what you saw today, tell me in the comments below. I do appreciate the support. If you like this channel, I humbly ask you, click the subscribe button below. I do appreciate the support, and until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.